Hey everybody, welcome back to East Oaks. We're so excited about doing another painting from life. We have some lovely flowers yet again from Madeline's Florist Company, and we're really excited about painting them. She's done a great job. I wish I knew all the names of the flowers, but I do know that the white ones are ranunculus. So this is our 25th painting from life. Isn't that something? Yeah. Anyway, we have the lovely Chelsea with us this evening, and Alex Venezia as usual. And without further ado, we're getting really excited about painting, so we're going to go ahead and start. Make sure that you know that you're welcome to ask any questions. Feel free to do a shout out and say where you're from. We love knowing where everyone's from. And, you know, like I said, without further ado, let's get started. The great thing about flowers is they don't take model breaks. So we'll be able to keep painting on and on. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll check and see what's going on there. All right, give us just a second, people. We're going to just test the static on one of these, and we'll be right back. It wouldn't be a painting from life if there wasn't something to troubleshoot right at the beginning.
Okay.
All right, so Alex, what's your approach today, man? You're gonna kind of paint petal by petal like normal? You're gonna like do the whole thing? I want to know so that I can do just the opposite of whatever you're doing, you know?
I have no idea. I'm making
Dang
that
it.
decision right now.
Well,
Could just do one.
no better
big
time than the
flower.
present to make decisions on these kinds of things. You know what? I think I'm going to start off with a fun fan brush. That's what I'm going to do. Yet again, ladies and gentlemen, painting from life is always a fun experiment, is what it is. Trying to figure out what we're going to do.
My canvas is a little too big.
Yeah, I hear you.
What are you gonna do? Just cut it. Actually, that's what I could have done.
Yeah, I think I'm being far too bold today because I think I'm going to try to paint like most of the bouquet. We'll see how much of a failure that is.
You're making me feel better about bringing a smaller panel because I saw the size of your panel. It's like, oh man, I should have brought the other one. But
No.
I'm regretting it.
Yep.
okay.
So in terms of people who here is viewing it, we have Alex. He is in L.A. Joyce is in Mukilteo, Washington. We have Ruby from London, England. Christine Long from Durham, North Carolina. Nayla from Winnipeg, Canada. And I don't know how to say it. It's just Eziok, lots of O's, from Saudi. Evie Erb from Durham, North Carolina as well.
Awesome.
Evie is one of the mentees in the mentee program. So excited to hear all those people. Alex, I know Alex is a regular as well in California.
Christine Long actually helped facilitate my first ever pop-up show over at Golden Belt in
Oh, wow.
Durham.
Look at that.
Yeah. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Christine.
We got a few more. Alex is from West Virginia, Wendy from Redmond, Washington, and Forrest, Suwon, Korea, and then Tina from Chicago.
There we go. That's awesome. You said Ontario and Chicago?
No, Suwon, Korea.
Oh, Suwon, Korea. That's far from Ontario.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's amazing. Suwon, Korea. Uh-oh, everybody's like looking on.
Eyes on your
what are
own
you doing?
paper,
What are you
Alex.
doing? Well, I'm just having fun with some finger paint over here.
Oh.
You know, with my lead white and
Right.
you know,
All your
vermilion with
cadmiums.
mercury in it. You know, that kind of stuff.
Wait, what pigment has mercury in it?
Vermilion.
Oh, I didn't realize. So that's why they don't make that anymore?
Yeah.
Whew.
You have to like import it from. Actually, I think you import it from Russia. we might not be having any more vermilion anytime soon. Who knows?
A lot of interesting block-ins tonight. I'm noticing some 3 very different techniques. It should be rather interesting to see how that develops.
I was just peeking over Alex's shoulder and I saw what he was doing, so I was like, I got to do something different.
How would you? I'm not going to go walk over there. I'm too busy, creating the masterpiece over there. That's a statement that'll come back and bite me in the butt. But tell me what you're doing.
I'm actually using a very large brush right now.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah. So, and just like using it to like make a few large shapes.
I feel like yours are both looking somewhat similar
Okay. All right.
in approach.
Alex is the informant. He's the spy in the middle.
You sound way too pleased with that, Alex.
He's like, aha.
Yeah. I have all their secrets.
And I'm not using them.
Ludmila says hello from Argentina. Christine Long, I believe, replying to you, says you're very welcome. I think for the show setup. Mustafa says hi from Egypt. Clarita says she's from Tampa, Florida, and then asks, what are each of you using for a substrate?
I have a Raymar panel that is the double oil primed panel, and it's on the medium weave. I always forget if that's the C13 or C15.
That's a good question. I don't know if it is either. I don't know what it is either. Raymar panels are great though. We were talking about them earlier. That Emily, who owns the company, is a good friend of mine, and I just went and visited her factory, her warehouse where they do all of, make all the panels, and it is an awesome facility. So
That sounds like a fun trip.
it is, man, and I tell you, she's not just building like products, man. She's building a brand.
Yeah.
She's got some of the ideas that they're working on for the future to make it better for the artists. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I just used a Raymar panel for the most recent Arcadia show.
Oh yeah.
And it
Nice.
was, yeah, it was really, really nice to work on. I don't know what it was, but it was Art Fix, linen. I think it was got like a handkerchief weave, but I don't know if she emailed me that or if it actually says that. But just like the smoothest one.
Yeah, that Art Fix is pretty amazing. Ooh, I've got paint sliding down my palette. That's what I get for having a vertical palette.
But what I'm painting on now is a lead alkyd ground by Rublev on a ACM panel.
And I am doing something very similar. It's the lead alkyd ground on Rublev lead alkyd ground on ACM panel as well. However, lately I've been wanting to branch out a bit and try some of the acrylic, just a golden acrylic ground. And that's honestly because Alex was talking about it, that he's tried it and has similar traits and qualities. And something that Will St. John said that I liked is that the lead alkyd ground is fantastic because lead's one of the most stable molecules in painting as far as pigment is concerned. So its longevity is pretty high. However, when it's in the substrate, over time, over a long duration of time, it will, if it doesn't get enough light on it, it will make the lead slightly go a little lower in value over time.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I think that's the only example I've ever heard of, like, you kind of wanting it to have some UV exposure. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that was the case.
Yeah, that was something that Will said, and I actually remember Georgia Hanlon, who runs Rublev, saying it as well, but that the effects are, relatively, minimal. They're not incredibly big, but it's one of those things that's something to think about,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen our friend Brett, he had a lead primed panel that has just been kind of like sitting in a box for a few years, and I thought he toned it,
Oh, wow.
but it wasn't toned, it was just like the darkening over time. So, yeah.
So Christine says this was about 4 minutes ago, so Alex's painting has developed more, but she said Alex's looks like a nude so far, so we'll see where that goes.
Boobzilla.
Let's see. Tina says Lewis's runaway paint pile is worrying me. Let's see. Clarita says, where do you get your ACM panels?
Do y'all do Apex here? Southeast in Apex?
What is the place that?
Well, it's called Choice Sign Supply. It might be in Raleigh.
Mm-hmm. Choice Sign Supply. I think they might have one or two locations in town, but it's just there's like a myriad of sign supply stores. So it's really kind of like up to you which one you want to use, but. I like them because for $5 they'll deliver all of your panels to you. Nice. And that's really convenient. So you have these 8-foot by 4-foot sheets coming straight to your door. You don't have to worry about it.
I've definitely chosen too much to paint. I don't remember how to paint this much stuff.
God. That's how I feel when I paint flowers, or recently trying to paint the Grand Canyon. It's just like my brain is not juggling this very effectively.
Yeah, the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
I get to see that.
Yeah, I'm just reverting back to childhood and finger painting over here. I almost feel a little bit like Bob Ross because, he would always bring out those big old brushes. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So maybe that's what I'm trying to do.
Maybe I'll channel some childhood stuff and go with the crayon look.
That's it.
Christine asks, do you all use the ACM panels when you're doing commissioned work?
Yes, I do. It's very convenient, and honestly, it's the best thing you can paint on as far as the substrate is concerned. So I actually really enjoy painting on it.
Yeah, I haven't. I think the only time I've heard of a friend using a stretched canvas recently has been something that's just been too big to maybe order or have shipped, or shipped to a show maybe. I forget the details, but I know I haven't worked on stretched canvas actually at all since I got started.
Nick, I'm stealing a paper towel of yours, considering I left mine upstairs. I will pay you back with a paper towel in the future. Hey, that's one of the greatest parts of having a community here. You can just steal from each other all the time.
Is that why Alex keeps looking at my paper?
Yep, exactly. You better watch
Steal
out.
it.
So we have a question from Thelina, which I actually had a similar question I was going to ask. So first, any thoughts about canvas texture, especially with ACM panels? You don't, it's maybe, is it more difficult to get some kind of texture on there that you like, compared to something like linen? And then they also ask, what is the composition of your panel, alumina and canvas, or just aluminum board?
I think the second question kind of answers the first, because you could put any linen texture you would have stretched on a panel. So sometimes I work with the surfaces that Alex and Louie are working on, and sometimes, like today, I'm working on linen. And then I'll let someone else answer the other question.
Yeah, that is sort of, for me, the biggest problem with working on these panels is getting the texture the way I want it. And ever since I started using them, just been experimenting with it. And it's also difficult because the lead, you can't sand it. So it's kind of like, you got to get it right. And so I have just ruined some huge boards. And then had to either throw it away or use the back and try again. And it dries so fast that sometimes you get like a gunky texture when you didn't want it. So yeah, it's really difficult. But something I've been liking, I don't know about with small work yet, but with somewhat larger work, when I put the lead alkyd ground on, I've been pressing some raw linen into the wet ground and then peeling it off, which kind of like flattens it, but then gives it like a reverse canvas weave, and that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's something I've been wanting to experiment with now that I've seen him do it. Yet again, we just look over each other's shoulders and I go, oh, what are you doing? Okay, I'll steal that too. And your paper towels. But Alex is really good about experimenting, trying new things and seeing what happens, throwing that spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, like the last two paintings that you've seen that are like upstairs, Louis, those are both on the acrylic ground.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't necessarily know if it's gonna be that great, but I'm just like, well, I'll do a gallery painting on it.
Yep.
And we'll just see. and it's pretty good. There's a few things that like the absorbency, if you sand it, is almost too unabsorbent, and it's like almost a bit too slippery. And yeah, but pretty good anyway.
Do y'all know if there's any archival issues with having canvas that's like put on ACM panel? As that's one of the big draws, is how archival it is. It does I don't know, the glue that attaches the canvas, or however you attach it, does that, I don't know, cause cracking or anything in the future that you're aware of, or peel off or anything?
Well, you know, the adhesion has always been a challenge for a lot of people when trying to adhere a canvas to the board, and a lot of people will use PVA. Is it PVA glue?
Yeah, it's PVA.
Yeah, PVA glue, and that seems, so far from sort of a broad consensus, seems to work the best. However, I've had friends experiment loads of different things to see if there's something else that would work better.
I know that people like the, I don't know if it's BEVA or BEVA, but BEVA is supposed to be like the archival standard, but I don't know that you can do it without a hot table.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like it's a heat press
Yeah.
activated.
Yeah.
The only problem with the heat press, if you believe it in a hot car, then there's a potential that it might like resurface, because it doesn't necessarily like cure it. I think that you can heat it up and like detach, which is also a really good thing to have.
Right.
Because if you needed to detach it off of the substrate and put it on a new one, it would be possible to do that.
Right.
For
I know that's why
conservators.
conservators would say use that and not
Right.
PVA, because PVA, it's like reversible, but it's not considered like conservator friendly, because
Yeah.
you would have to like water activate it, which you want to avoid if possible. But
Yep.
yeah, I think these are adhered with that adhesive, like the Raymar panels. I'm assuming. If I do it myself, I use PVA, because trying the other way was driving me insane.
Oh, I bet.
So we have a question from Alicia, who asks, I guess first, do you use transparent colors at this stage? And can you say what colors you're using? Also, is there a good rule for mixing convincing greens?
Well, I'll start with saying yes, I'm using tons of transparent colors. So I'm using French Ultramarine and Oxide Red. I'm also using a touch of, well, Viridian is semi-transparent. It's not truly fully transparent. But, and then Alizarin Crimson, which are all transparent colors. I tend to like go transparent to more opaque. But I'm also painting so thinly in the first layers that everything feels transparent, even if it is opaque. So what was the second part of that question?
Mixing convincing greens.
Oh, mixing convincing greens. Alex, you paint so many greens.
Yeah, and I hate them all, so I wouldn't want to give you bad information. But I know that Michael Klein starts with, first mixes ultramarine blue with burnt sienna, and then adds the cad yellow in, so that it has kind of like that earthy warmth to it, and it's not just blue and yellow, pure green. And I think that looks more convincing, although I could do better at that personally.
This is my own sort of hunch on theory, but my theory is that people they tend to, for some reason or another, want to go straight to the most chromatic form of green, when they're painting. And I think for some reason they want to do that more with the green than any other color. So it makes it very difficult for them to work with green because they're starting at its highest chroma. So they don't give themselves room to go any brighter or any darker. So I would say that oftentimes it's a warm, cool game that you're playing in the green to make it feel convincing than anything. Would you agree or disagree with that, Alex?
No, yeah, I agree. And I definitely think it's the case that my natural like inclination is to go high chroma. It's almost like there's just, I feel like out of every other color, there's like more shades of green than any other color. And yeah, it just plays with me.
Chelsea, you have any thoughts on there?
I can't help but wonder if part of it is that like Viridian is a color that a lot of people have on their palette, and it's so cool that like some artists literally think of it as a blue. And I don't know about y'all, but I like very rarely look at my tube of Viridian and look at what I'm painting and be like, yep, that green's in there.
Yeah.
And I wonder if people aren't kind of sticking too close to that Viridian, just out of sheer convenience.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Viridian, at least because I'm a portrait painter, is a far better just like tinting color to use for your skin tones, you know. But it's a hard color to, I think, personally use sometimes in landscape without knowing what you're doing with the color, or having the correct complementary colors with it on your palette that can manipulate it properly.
All right, so we have some more people from the audience. Rosalie says hi from Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, Rosalie.
Then Christine Long says, yes, you can use BEVA film or BEVA film. I don't know if it's pronounced, but BEVA film using an iron set on rayon setting. Then Lakshan says, what are your thoughts, or what are the thoughts you have about William Adolph Bouguereau? Why he is so important in representational art? I see Alex as this generation's WAB. That's why I asked. Thanks.
Hey, what a compliment.
I actually hate Bouguereau.
That would be great. He's the worst.
No, I don't hate him. Yeah, why is he important? I don't know if he's important. He just paints flesh so amazingly to me personally. And I feel like some people would think that he's not very important, and that what he's saying is nothing maybe interesting or something. I know some people in our field are not huge Bouguereau fans.
It's so funny to me that is one of the people that becomes the polarizing artist. Because there's a lot of artists that did similar things or made similar statements or had their own way of painting or their own way of selling. And, that could be as critical. But for a man who could be able to paint such subtlety, is a craft that's really hard to achieve at his level. And so should deserve respect.
And he did so many.
Yeah, he was such an incredibly prolific painter, wasn't he?
But yeah, I mean, just seeing some of the stuff in person, it's just so three-dimensional and rich and like luminous, and it's so subtle but not overworked, and yeah, technically it's just everything a lot of people want. And also thank you for the Bouguereau comment. I don't know if I agree, but thank you.
I'm really sad the Bouguereau that was at NCMA isn't
Oh,
there
man.
anymore.
So sad because it was such a great one too.
I know.
What was it called? Eros resisting or
A
resisting?
young girl defending herself from
From
love or Eros
Eros or-
or
yeah.
Cupid or, yeah.
There's a new little one there.
What's the name of it? I haven't seen it yet.
It's just a portrait of a little baby girl. Very simple, just kind of like dark background. Profile, chubby cheeked little girl. And I think it has a very simple title. Like Portrait of Girl or something.
Portrait of Girl.
Do you have paintings that you like most go to see at our art museum here? Because that one was definitely mine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a Sargent technically, but it's like a sketch for a mural. And it's like
Yeah,
it doesn't
right.
even
It's-
count.
Right. It's like a for an architectural design.
Yeah.
And it was like one of his last ones, I think, wasn't it? One of his last commissions before.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I heard someone say that it was one of his last pieces he did before he passed away or stopped painting or.
I would believe it. I was probably too busy being disappointed to notice if that was like on the plaque or whatever.
I believe it was a study for the Boston Library murals, and it was done over the course of like 10 years. And I think he didn't actually finish, or maybe he finished right before he died. So, yeah, I mean, when something's over the course of 10 years, though, you know, it's not like, you know, very last kind of, you know, breath or something. But, you know, it was definitely the end of his career, I think, after he had stopped doing portraits.
Yeah.
The one that I always go to see is I'm almost positive it's Thomas Wilmer Dewing. But it's literally called like Winged Figure or something. Oh man, I have to find a picture. But it's like all the way in the back
Yeah.
to the left where that Sargent mural thing
Oh,
is.
I think
Oh.
I know which one you're.
The one that has like a Thayer look to it? Is that the?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. That's awesome. I'm trying to think about like what was some of the ones that really, because it's been a second since I've been there. I feel like there's one with like these little kids, little children that are like sitting all together and have like scuffed up shoes.
I know the one.
You know what I'm talking about? That I feel has a particular energy to it that I like. But I can't for the life of me remember who did it.
I remember I went there with my mom, and that was her favorite painting.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it's like all of these like boys, and they've got scuffed up like pants and
Yeah.
and boots, and yeah.
There was a painting there of, I think, a cardinal that I haven't seen it like the last once or twice that I've been to the museum. It was by the statue of Saul, I think. But yeah, it was one of my favorites. And then last time I went there, or maybe 2 times ago, it was like, it's gone. What happened to it?
So the
That's what I wanna
the Bouguereau belongs to the Keenan family of like, I know UNCW, but I also think it's like for UNC, and that's now in some private building that they own. It's like in the
okay.
lobby. So it was on loan to NCMA from the family.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, that makes more sense now.
I know. I literally looked it up like a week ago.
I thought that they had like sold it to get some other piece of something that
it
I
was
really
never
wouldn't
theirs. Although we could go see the copy of it in the Getty.
Yep. Yeah, there is multiple of that one, isn't there?
Yeah, 2. Yeah.
And if I read something correctly, I think, didn't he do that because one would be for like the etching plates to send off to be etched for prints, and then the other one would like go to either the client or something. Like he would make 2 copies of a lot of his like more known ones because of them being used to print and made into etchings.
Oh. I believe you.
Well, it sounds intellectual and it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to go ahead and confess that I'm sure there's a Bouguereau scholar out there that's going to be like, no. So anyone who has a better understanding of Bouguereau's life and that instance, then please feel free to speak up. No, I've just got random blobs.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Random blobs. I
I'm-
feel like on a face, I can make so much sense of the anatomy and kind of have a sense of where I'm at. I'm like, this is just noise. That's what my brain says.
Yeah,
It's just,
that's a good way to put it. It just feels like noise. That's how mine feels right now.
that's how I feel whenever I paint something I don't usually paint.
I'll get to the other questions, but Madeline says, "Hey y'all, I'm not there, but watching in between trivia rounds. Also, Alex's still looks nude adjacent." So I thought that seems topical. I'll go back and do the other questions, but it still looks like a nude apparently.
Please continue to heckle Alex.
Hey man, maybe this
Thank
will
you,
help
Madeline.
somebody purchase it because like they're like, I love it and I don't know why.
We won't tell on you.
All right, so another question, though, is have any of you painted on paper that has been specifically prepared for oil painting but not gessoed? If so, your experience. What about aluminum or copper?
I have not personally. So I have painted on copper, and haven't painted on like the actual aluminum surface. I always paint on aluminum panel, almost always. So yes to that, but copper is fun. It takes me a second to like adjust my brain that I'm painting on that kind of surface as far as like color is concerned. But aside from that, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no to all of them.
Yeah, I haven't either. I have friends who paint on watercolor paper that's been shellacked. And they really like that surface, especially for doing studies and, you know, something that's just like cheap and they don't have to worry about like ruining a panel. But I have not personally done it.
Alicia says, "Hi to Lewis. I took a workshop with him in Nashville."
Woo! Hi, Alicia. That was a fun workshop over at Jeannie's place, Warehouse 521. It's an awesome spot. I hope you're continuing to paint portraits, and hopefully it was helpful for you. But thank you for taking it. I need to talk to Jeannie about doing another one there because it's been a while and it would be a lot of fun to go back.
All right, we also have
What did you say her name was?
let's see, Alicia.
Alicia. Alicia, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong. Are you the one that was the equine person that was in Franklin, Tennessee?
By equine
as
person,
in-
you don't
as
mean
in-
like a
as in, like-
centaur, right?
Equine, no, as in equestrian. She was
There we
painted
go.
equestrian. Is that not a word? Equine? Like,
No, that's a real
Equine
word.
describes like
Am I in
equestrian
a room with
describes
like a bunch of
person,
intellectuals that are
equine.
going to be like, you got the word wrong?
I think it makes sense. It makes sense. There's an ambiguity there.
Yeah, well, to me, it just sounds like a very roundabout way of saying, like, are you the horse girl?
Are
As
you-
someone who gets called
Yeah, that
horse
sounds a lot
girl
better.
lot.
Hey, are you the horse girl?
Oh, no, it's not like a nice thing to call somebody, but it just sounded like,
It's all right. I can laugh at myself and watch. You might not even be that person. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I think that person was in my Georgia workshop, but was from Franklin. So
Always wanted to be a horse girl.
I always wanted to be a horse girl.
I could facilitate that.
Would you please?
Yeah, you are an equine person, right?
Oh, goodness. I'm just going to own it. Okay. Yep, sure.
You do ride horses, correct?
I do ride horses. I actually just, like, literally right before this started, finished signing up for a horse show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Nice.
thanks. It's my first one back since in 10 years, so
Whoa, 10 years, huh?
yeah, cross your fingers I don't fall off.
Yeah, that would not be a good day.
It would be fun to watch, though.
It's at the fairgrounds.
Can we come-
Oh, you
can we
mean
come and
watch
watch
me
and laugh?
fall off? Oh my gosh.
But also, yes, if it is a public event.
It is. Yeah, it's at the fairgrounds. It's not this coming weekend, but next weekend.
Well, that's not too far away.
No, you could pop on by.
All right,
I-
everybody, you heard it here. Come on by to Raleigh's Fairgrounds, the state fairgrounds, to come watch Chelsea fall off.
Oh no. If I actually fall off, I have not fallen off since I was pretty young, just I think by sheer luck and maybe a little skill. So if that actually makes it happen, you all will not hear the end of it.
Yep. We're gonna make sure you get the horse like named Old Lively or something, you know.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So, let's see. Harriet says, hi from Massachusetts. How do you prepare oil painting for the next layer when you have left it for months or a year? Is there a point of no return for paint to adhere? Does it need oleo gel? Clean it with OMS first.
The cleaning question's an interesting one.
I would just paint on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, sometimes the longer you've waited, according to Georgia Hanlon, the better it is for the next layer. Is because some people will paint when the under layer isn't at the right dryness, and then you got to think about like fat over lean. But you actually won't have to worry about like the fat over lean process if the paint underneath it is fully cured or very close to being fully cured. So, but as far as cleaning is concerned, I think that they make a cleaning solution. Natural Pigments does for preparing for the next layer to like get the dust off or to like clean it before you varnish. So I'd look into that.
All right. Christine Long says, there's an unfinished Bouguereau at the Auckland, by the way. I don't know if I said that right.
In Chapel Hill. Nice.
Yeah, I went to try and see it once, and it's in storage, and they wouldn't let me go
Oh,
down
wow.
That's
into
rude.
storage.
Lame.
I always get really uppity when like museums won't let you paint or like
Yep.
not let you see certain things because I was like, this is what museums were made for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I also, at the North Carolina Museum, tried to ask about painting in there. They're like, sorry, no, but we have an arcade exhibit coming up. Like, I just wanted to, like, play or something. I was like,
Right. Okay, I feel like we need to petition, or like all of y'all watching should petition on Alex's behalf or maybe East Oaks' behalf and say like, no, 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 they're actually really great and you should let them come paint.
And how cool if we could film it.
That would
Yeah.
be awesome. Maybe we can strike a deal with them. Be like, all right, look, we will come and promote the museum and film the whole thing. I feel like we could figure out some sort of angle.
Yeah. It could be the new Art and Bloom.
Well, now that actually would be a. There was a time where we were trying to partner with them with the Art and Bloom and do like paintings of the flower
Yeah.
arrangements. So just to kind of give everyone context, our museum here every spring does this thing called Art and Bloom, and I think it's a fundraiser. Is that not right? Is that?
I know it's
correct, or is it
paid
just-
and it's by, I assume it's a fundraiser.
So, and basically they get all sorts of florists in the area to make these interesting and beautiful arrangements that are sort of their own art form. And then we were considering saying, hey, well, look, we'll paint them as part of the fundraising event as a way of just creating our own East Oaks exposure to what we're doing. But no one really took to it.
That is a shame.
I feel like we just need to be presented to the right person at the right time. Is
Yeah.
typically how those things can work. Do y'all ever feel like you're like doing other things to avoid actually painting the flowers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that.
I'm just
Not me, but a guy I know is in that stage right now.
of course. I hate that feeling of like, oh, my white doesn't look bright enough, which means all your values are wrong. Just all of them.
All of them.
Thelina asks, are there any favorite living artists for you guys? I'm really in love with Roberto Ferri, Lipking, and Alex.
Alex who?
Alex who?
Which Alex? Is there another Alex out there?
Jesse, who are some of your favorites?
I feel like I answer this question every week, and I always feel really self-conscious about it because I feel like our areas are so different. So I feel like the odd man out. But until last year, I would have said Richard Schmid, obviously. Mm-hmm. Daniel Keyes, Kwang Ho, Carolyn Anderson. I have some artists that are more in like the digital space whose work I really enjoy.
That's cool.
And I'm probably forgetting some people who are really important, and I'm going to kick myself later when I think about it, but that is what I will say for now.
Honestly, that's how I feel every single time I get asked that question is like there's people that I almost are like the most prominent, and they're the ones I forget about when I'm actually in here painting. Part of my homework should be that I'm going to make a full list of all the artists so that I don't forget anyone, and I can just go, "Ba-da-da-da, here's a PDF." You know? I have so many that it's really just hard to even start. But a couple of the people that I've been into lately, and I always forget how to pronounce his name. The Guillermo guy,
Yeah.
Alex, is that it? Guillermo? Is that how you say his name?
I don't know.
It's a Chilean painter, and he does sort of these surreal pieces that actually sometimes feel a bit gruesome, but he does it in a classical way that makes them quite beautiful. And I think he's just excellent at composition, and he's been somebody I've just kind of been looking at a lot lately. Well, I mean, I am inspired every day when I look over my shoulder and see Alex's work.
No.
So just gonna go ahead and put that out there. Some low-hanging fruit for me.
Thank you, Louis.
But you tell some of yours. I know a couple of the ones that you'll probably say, and then we can circle back around and see if I can think of some of the other major players of who I'm looking at. I love lately. I've been into looking at some of Karen Offutt's work, and I'm a huge colorist fan. Even though I wouldn't say that I'm a colorist, but Jeff Hein and Stephen Assail, those people, and how they can play with color in such a way that still feels real. Offutt's is a little bit beyond it, and maybe Stevens, but when Jeff Hein, he can put crazy color on it and it still feels so real. So those are a couple off the top of my head.
Alex, do you want me to jump in on that and let you stall for a second, or do you want to answer that before I
can answer.
All right.
Yeah, well, Odd Nerdrum is one. And I just got reminded of it recently because he had a painting at this group show at the Salmagundi Club in New York. And I just saw it and was like, oh yeah, that's why I love this guy. It was just, I mean, there was so much good shit in that room, but that one blew every single one away for me. So yeah, him, and then, watching the way that certain painters paint, like Louis mentioned, Stephen Assail and Jeff Hein. Yeah, they're amazing. I love their stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more, but drawing a blank at the moment.
So what I wanted to jump in with, I guess this is a question for just Louis, but Alex, if you have an equivalent answer, I would love to hear from you. But speaking of Jeff Hein, were there any talks or demos or anything you saw at Portrait Society that was especially exciting?
I mean, I loved watching, speaking of Jeff, I loved watching Jeff and Mary paint.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a lot of fun. Mary's so lively in how she paints, but they both have an energy in their mark that is fun to see. They're both their approaches, even though both of them have a particular energy in their mark making. So, it's also this, in that same vein, it's so much fun to watch Rosa Franson paint because she just, I call them boxers at the canvas because they're literally look like they're fighting with the paint, they're jumping side to side and then jabbing straight into the canvas. So it's entertaining. But, I also found, even on in the vendor section, watching Kwang Ho paint his little one.
I know.
That was awesome because he did 3 little paintings of his
Liam.
Is it Liam? And just while he's sleeping, that was a lot of fun to watch. Let's see. Also, one of the things I actually really enjoyed was listening to Daniel Sprick's talk. Really enjoyed that.
That was the final morning, right?
Yep.
I'm sad that I missed that.
Yeah, it was a tough one. It was a struggle to get up to go to it, but I caught it midway, and kind of it was one of those things where I kind of wished that I'd caught it even earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of who else was one of my favorite. I didn't, believe it or not, because I was faculty, I didn't get to jump around as much as I wanted to because I was on duty a lot.
Yeah, I kind of
So,
figured that might be the case.
Three of the breakout session situations, I was actually doing my own breakout session.
Yeah.
So, wasn't like a good old days where you could just roam around.
At the beginning of Jeff's demo with Mary, he gave like a really interesting talk on why he uses the transparent paints he does and how it corresponds with value. And it's not just like transparent darks, opaque lights, but there's like a very specific method to it. And he had this great chart that made almost no sense that he talked through. And I think for a lot of painters, that was like one of the more interesting takeaways.
Yeah, that's awesome. I missed that part. I missed the beginning. I was in a very interesting convo with Scott Burdick at the time, and so I missed the beginning of that part.
Yeah, I've taken a workshop from Jeff, and his method with transparency and like how it gets more transparent as it gets dark, and it's never fully transparent until you're in like the darkest darks. And yeah, that totally changed how I paint when I took that workshop.
Nice.
Because his paintings in person look three-dimensional in a way that
Yeah,
a
they
lot
really
of
do.
people's like in the same room just do not. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
So we have a lot of comments rolling in. So let's see. Evie says they also may have moved some of the pieces. I think the Bouguereau pieces are the ones, at least from the museum, to the Auckland on the UNCCH campus. Alicia, referring to Lewis, says that he was a great instructor, although that was not her.
With the
Yeah, she says
the equine thing.
yeah, she said she was the one that had not done many portraits, but you were a great instructor.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the class. I truly, truly appreciate all the students who I've taught.
Then Tina says, Chelsea, I was also a hashtag horse girl when I was little, and it was the best.
Thank you for the solidarity.
Let's see. Heidi says, hey from Egypt. And per a later comment, Heidi is apparently a friend of Mustafa. And it is her first time to join East Oak Studios.
Well, Heidi, we're happy to have you, and Mustafa is a dear East Oaks friend. So I'm glad, Mustafa, I'm glad you're here too. So we hope you continue to join us for the rest of them.
Let's see. Borg 00 says, I'll sign the petition. And then Art in Bloom is in Boston, MFA as well. Evie says, I used to intern in the NCMA education department and helped design a bunch of the art and bloom materials. Honestly, I imagine they'd love a live paint session like this in their programming.
Well, we need to, Evie, you're our in. So I'll have my people call your people.
Ara says, greetings from Armenia, which is pretty cool. Do you use sandpaper or razor between layers?
If it's a really high ridge, I'll use a razor, but most of the time I'll use sandpaper. Alex, what about you, buddy? Because I know you sand more than I do.
Yeah, sometimes I do, and I would like to more, but it only really works well for me if I'm working on linen, and if it's an oil ground, or else I don't sand much. Although I will use like a Scotch-Brite sort of, it's like this pad that is just like for scuffing, and I will use that because I feel like it doesn't do too much. And yeah, razor blade, if there's a real big bump, need to get out.
Chelsea, do you ever scrape or anything?
Not for that purpose, like not when anything is so dry that I am in trouble. But I actually I just picked up these Creative Mark silicone spatula brushes. So for like alla prima work, that will take you all the way back.
All the way down.
And I like it a lot more than trying to use a palette knife to scrape down. In fact, I might use this a little bit here because my paint layer is getting a little thick for my liking.
Lewis, can you check the focus on that camera? I think it may actually be slightly out of focus.
On which one, mine?
Yeah.
I was thinking it might be before, but with the kind of loose brush strokes and stuff, it was a little hard to tell. And the brush, see the tat off. Oh, that looks good. Oh, there we go.
Is that better?
Yes.
You're gonna lighten it up just a little bit too. How's that?
I think it looks a little lighter than Red Life, I think, at least from what I can tell. All right, that looks better. All right. Millie says, hello everyone from Phoenix, Arizona. It's so hot over here, 105 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow. Hi, Millie. Millie was in my workshop down in Phoenix. So glad you're joining us. She made a beautiful painting of Lily.
I believe that this is somebody's cue to point out that it may be 105 degrees, but it's a dry heat. So that's kind of obligatory. See, MM Borg says, isn't it great when you hear of an artist that is new to you, whose style you like? Fernando says they are talking about Guillermo Lorca and says that he is Chilean too.
Oh, cool.
Let's see. Mia says hello from Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then Alex Tabbitt asks, how do you all keep your deep darks of a painting from appearing dull or cruddy? I try to gradually build up with ultramarine/transparent oxide red. Oiling out seems to be only a temporary solution. I mostly have trouble with the darkest darks when they take up a large part of the composition.
Does it go away when you varnish?
Yeah, because oiling out is a temporary solution, but you just know in your head that when you varnish it, it'll go back to normal. So if it is solving it when you oil out, then you should be fine.
Yep.
Because all of my paintings sitting out right now are super sunken in. And I just know that's how it goes till I varnish.
Yeah, there's like some sort of school of thought that I haven't actually experimented enough with, but that you can use a more viscous oil in your layers that you would have to buy separate and then kind of mix in with it, and so that when it dries, it actually doesn't sink in as much. But I'm unfamiliar with it, so I haven't actually done much with it. So I can't make too many comments about whether I feel like it works or not.
When I used to use, back in the day when a lot of people used to use mediums that had Damar varnish in it, I mean, that would do the trick. That would make it nice and shiny and collect a lot of dust for you.
Oh yeah, exactly. Plus, collect a lot of dust. That's that one thing you should always take into consideration. It's a good point, buddy. Is if you do it, then it's going to be a dust magnet. So it's a catch-22 for sure. So just wear one of those dust-free suits with like a dust-free room and like a clean room. You'll be fine. Don't wear just gloves. Wear a whole suit.
With your painting inside the suit.
Yep, painting inside the suit. Yep.
Alex did reply, and he said, varnishing seems to solve parts of it, but not the entire region. It could be because I use GamVar.
Some people have a lot of success with GamVar, and I think it also depends on your climate. But I've always run into issues of beading with GamVar because the surface tension is so high. I would suggest, if you want to give it a try, using Conservar made by Rublev. Its surface tension is not as high, and so it has less tendency to bead up. So give that a go and see how it works.
I feel like my only other question, just to make sure there isn't something more obvious, is like, are you avoiding working opaques into that transparent oxide brown and ultramarine mixture? And also, like, are you thinning it so much with GamVar, like you're doing a wash, kind of like some of the darker strokes I have here, where you might be thinning it too much and it gets too transparent as it settles and dries. What did I mix this color for?
Right there.
just got it.
See? Wonder what time it is.
Oh, you made me realize what I mixed it for. And that's just because I was
Yeah,
like,
what time is it, Nick?
It is,
5 minutes.
7:09.
did we just paint for a straight hour?
Okay.
Millie Guthrie says, this message is for Lewis. Hello from all your students from your last in-person workshop in Scottsdale, Arizona. 4 of us got together yesterday to practice everything we learned from you. You're the best.
That is awesome. That makes me so happy. I think I saw somebody post a painting of Lily. So I'm wondering if that was your session that you got together on. That's awesome. That makes me so happy. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Let's see, and then Jolene says, I lived in Arizona 30 years. It's also a dry heat when you stick your head in the oven. LOL. Let's see. Immenborg said Guillermo Lorca. Wow, that seems like an accurate reaction. Clifton says, can you give us an idea of the financial realities of being a painter? Maybe a realistic income range? Is the starving artist a myth, or do I need to convince my wife to move into my mom's basement?
Well, I mean, this is a little bit to unpack, but this is like some of my favorite type of questions too. One is no, it most certainly is a viable career if you're a self-disciplined person or understand that you have to learn to play to your personality traits as a painter. You know, are you motivated to paint when you're around other painters, or do you do best when you're by yourself? Making sure that you're really honest with yourself on how your discipline process is. Also, you know, making sure that you have a structured idea of a business model, and to talk to and go to some counseling of people who understand what to do there. And it absolutely is a viable career. And, you know, depending on what kind of artist you are and where you are in your region and what you paint will depend on what kind of income you could make from it. Also depends on, I think this is less of a thing, but it also depends on your skill level. But I've seen many artists whose skill level is lower, but they're incredibly good at business and they understand their market and do very, very well. So I even think that you have to have like 2 of the 3. You don't have to have like all 3, but you either have to be good at business and good at your craft and good at discipline. And, you know, if you get 2 of those 3, then, then you can get yourself close to setting yourself up for success. What do you think, Chelsea?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think there's a lot of grit that it comes down to. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of artists who are very talented and very afraid to just tell someone that their painting is for sale. And if they dove into the business part and started to feel comfortable with that and were willing to just try stuff over and over and fail at things and see what actually works for them, they could be immensely successful. So yeah, and I would absolutely say that your income isn't a function of your skill level, but rather how much you are excited about what you're doing, and you're able to connect with people about that and help them to get excited about it too. Yeah, it's a very overly simplistic way of looking at it, but.
Yeah, but I mean, I know people who make income levels that are beyond what doctors make, and I know people that make income levels that are, you know, in alignment to, you know, a working class person, and both of them are viable. I call what income you make is your offense, and your saving ability and your investing ability is your defense. And so some people have an incredible offense and can make 6 figures, but they can possibly have a horrible defense and just not understand how to manage their money well, and can get themselves in trouble that way. And then I know a lot of people in just the opposite situation, where they're incredibly good at defense but have a hard time trying to generate an income for their offense to be really good. So if you can figure out a way to do both, there's some really great books out there for it, then that's how you set yourself up for a really good success. And yet again, that's like saying, you know, it's 5 shots to the hole in golf. That's how you win. You just hit the ball 5 times into the hole. You know, so it's easier said than done, and I realize that. But it's most certainly something that I think this is where mentors and mentees really come in handy. Find a good mentor who has been successful, who has a teacher's heart, and cares about your success, and and ask them to help you get to that next stage.
Clifton has replied and said, "My wife appreciates the answer. Thanks, guys. Although I guess y'all did not clarify if he should or should not move into his mom's basement."
It's defense. I did answer that.
Okay.
No, I mean,
But that's
I'm
not a
being
yes or
funny.
no.
I'm being funny
Okay.
in the sense that I didn't make it clear, but and I most certainly didn't intentionally answer it. But in a way, I did, because that's defense. Moving into your mom's basement is a way that you save money, and if that's what you have to do in order for your equilibrium of your defense and offense to work, absolutely. And there is nothing wrong with spending time with the family while you're trying to work on your success.
All right. Let's see. Lisa says, "Can you give 1 or 2 tips for someone transitioning from acrylics? I'm interested in trying oils after painting watercolors and acrylics. Lovely paintings, by the way."
Ooh. Acrylics is such a different animal. It's like, I mean, it's closer related than watercolor is to oil, but oil can be so transparent that in acrylics it's just such an opaque form. Just get used to the idea of the paint drying more slowly, so you have time on your side compared to acrylic. Do y'all have any thoughts on?
Last time I used
Clarification?
acrylics was in high school, so I have no idea, except for what you said. Let it dry slower.
I feel like for a lot of painters, it could be an advantage because you can't blend on the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of cuts both ways. So like making sure you trust your skills in terms of mixing the right color and putting down the right shape of it, but also making sure that because suddenly you can now blend on the canvas with oil, that you don't get sucked into that. And you think about putting down very intentional shapes as if you can't rework it.
Sounds like an Alla Prima painter.
He got me.
No, that still applies.
It's funny because like as soon as people say things like that, I'm like, perfect shape, make a good shape. Well, we always made a joke at when I was at Grand Central, and that you would hear the person critiquing, the teacher critiquing the person next to you, and they'd be like, okay, on the leg, you should, right where the knee connects, you should be really considering how these two can join. And like you'd be working on the face, and all of a sudden you're like checking out your knee to make sure that you did whatever they said.
When do you all force yourself to stop looking at everything when you don't have to give a model a break?
Yeah.
I should do that.
You want to take a break?
I'm not going to be the one to say it.
Yeah, we could.
All right, everybody, we're going to take 5. So get your questions ready for the next round, and we will be back shortly.
That's a great mark. I'm not going to touch that now.
I keep telling myself on things like that, and I always end up touching it again. And I'm like, why did I do that?
Just let me live in my delusion.
No, I truly believe you won't touch it again. I'm just saying that I wish I had that discipline.
I appreciate your confidence. I think that you're speaking to a human tendency that I'm also subject to. Like, oh, this flower is a jerk. It really is. If someone is great at painting daisies, phone in.
Yeah.
Give me some tips. I know that's not a daisy.
I was about to say, I was like,
daisy-esque. It's that kind
It's
of
that
form.
multi-petal.
Yeah, very flat, like disc shaped.
I'll tell you what Jacob Collins used to tell us, which is just make this look like that.
Perfect.
It's like, yep.
No
on it.
interpretation whatsoever. I'll just be a little inkjet printer.
Now everybody's getting quiet and serious here.
I'm doing battle.
Yeah, that's true. We're in a fight.
Oh, oops. Here, wait, one sec. Harriet asks, what do you think of Henry Fantin Latour's flower paintings? The style appears nowadays. Your setup is similar. I love seeing your paintings progress.
Well, thank you. I personally am a huge fan of Fantin Latour stuff. Whenever I'm painting flowers, I feel like I always have one of his flowers paintings up on my computer somewhere as influence. Hopefully gleaning something from it, or by diffusion alone, getting some inspiration. But no, I love his stuff. So
Yeah, agreed. He is the best flower painter.
Heva.
Very good. And his people paintings.
Yeah, you don't see his people paintings nearly as much as you see his flower stuff. But I was looking through one of, I think it was one of your books, Alex, and was noticing some of his pieces.
Yeah, and then towards the end of his career, he was doing these like super rough, loose, allegorical, like multi-figure nude compositions, which is super cool to see. And I also love to see someone who's kind of super, let's say, naturalist or painting simple subjects, but can also, flip it and paint something, epic and allegorical. And
Yeah.
when a painter is like, no, I do both. I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Chelsea hates Fantin.
Yep.
No, it's worse. I don't know who you're talking about.
Shut up.
I know. Yeah, that
all
like
right.
we lived the
door.
nightmare scenario where you're like, Chelsea, what do you think? And I had to be like, oh God, I'm
he's amazing.
uneducated.
No, I hear you. I've had that happen to me before, where everyone's like, yeah, this artist, and they're so amazing, and this, and this, and be like, wait, who is Odd Nerdrum again? It literally happened to me earlier on, back in like 2010. I was talking with Nick Alm and Teresa Oaxaca, and they were talking about Odd, and I was like, who's this? Who are we talking about? And they're like, what? I was like, okay, I feel dumb. But you got to learn somehow.
All right, I'm less angry with that one flower, so calling that a victory.
Chris asks, do you guys like H.R. Geiger?
Like the guy
Alex turns at me, hopefully. Isn't that the designer on Alien? Okay, I'm checking. Because I think I'm right, and that will have redeemed me, honestly.
Oh, he's a Swiss artist.
Yes. He did all of the concept work for the Alien movies.
Hey, look at you. Been redeemed.
Thank you. Thank you for giving that to me.
Yeah, I've definitely heard.
Did you text him and be like, hey, mention this guy, then I can like redeem myself?
Chris also asks, do you guys know of a lead tin yellow to get?
This is yellow, lead tin yellow on my palette, right here. And yes, it is, this one's made by Michael Harding, I believe. And I really like it, especially for lighter skin tones and things that I'm trying to get. So, highly recommend it. Now I'm kind of like just creeping around each flower to hopefully give it a bit of understanding before I keep on. You know, I could stay and sort of like squint and big shape stage the whole time, and then I'm like, well, and I wouldn't get anything actually done on this, so.
Yeah, my canvas isn't even covered yet, so I envy you.
Meanwhile, I think I'm flying too close to the sun. There's areas with just like too much paint on it, or I've worked in a little bit too much.
Yeah, I'm probably am already working too much in, but we're gonna go with it.
Okay, I'm here for it. I'll go on that journey with you.
Yes.
So what do you guys do to fix that scenario where you've put too much paint on or worked too much or something?
I will wipe away with probably this little silicone tool, which I wish I had brought a bigger one for today. I should have foreseen this. But yeah, that would be my go-to, is to go ahead and knock it back and then go ahead and lay the paint back in from there. What about y'all?
Well, I don't have said tool, but you know, just lick my thumb, just and then like, you know.
Well, I like what I see TJ Cunningham saying some stuff, someone asking like similar questions, and he's like, I just use even more paint.
That's a Scott Burdick move right there for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Scott Burdick's, the solution is always more paint. The guy just blows my mind how much he'll just slot paint on, and it works. You know, he's like, oh, you want to get rid of that dark line? Let's just put on an entire tube of white. You want to get rid of that light line? Let's put an entire tube of black.
That was the amazing thing about watching Mary Chin paint in her demo with Jeff at Portrait Society. I was just like, there is never too much paint on this canvas, apparently.
Yep. Those people
Fearless.
know. how to paint. We had an instructor that always would say, just, you got to paint. In order to paint, you got to use paint. You know, so, well, it's that simple and just that hard. Got to use paint to paint.
Was that Travis Schlott?
It was.
So we've got a couple questions about lead. So Guido asks, why is lead stannate important?
Why is lead what important?
Yeah, what was the second word after lead?
Lead stannate. It's STANNATE.
I don't know, but I need to find out what's so important about it too. I don't think I know what that is. Lead stannate. We'll get back to you of why it's so important.
So he commented again and said that it's lead tin yellow.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't necessarily think that it's entirely important. It helps to have a lighter value high chroma yellow, and it's not that high chroma, but it kind of sets the stage for you shouldn't be going more chromatic than this if you're painting in skin tones. And so that's one of the reasons I like it, is that it allows for me to be able to shift into the warm in a high value easily, which sometimes can prove elusive.
Kylie asks, do any of you use lead white? Sorry. What's the difference? Also, can you recommend an overall good palette for Baroque master copies?
No idea.
Yeah, I know. I wish I was more of a Baroque expert, but I'm not. It's such a dark and light form of painting. You know, it's all about that chiaroscuro. You know. But the first part of the question was, do we use lead white, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, and that is a resounding yes from Alex and I. Chelsea, do you use lead white?
I do not, simply because I haven't come upon a painting where I've thought like, wow, I hate this white that I'm using. I should try another one. And with any other pigment, I might be more excited to do that. But with lead, I'm kind of like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. As far as Baroque palette is concerned, I honestly don't know. I think you should probably, there's probably loads of stuff on the internet to show you kind of what palettes they used back then. More of a neutral palette typically is what most of those painters had back then. They didn't even have some of the crazy colors that we have today. So not going like too chromatic is probably a good rule of thumb. Going something similar to maybe even a Zorn palette would get you closer, except that they use such stark darks and lights that you would just paint far heavier in dark and light if it was more of a Baroque painting. What do you kids think? Something similar?
Yeah, probably something like the Zorn palette, some browns in there. Yeah, yellow ochre, brown, black.
Lots of brown. Brown. It's definitely a theme.
Vermilion maybe.
Yep.
For some reason I want to say olive green. Mm.
Go for it.
Here, I'm gonna go. So for Liu Louie, Ara asks, can you give some announcements about future classes?
So yeah, well, first of all, I'm working on this next month. I'm working on a self-portrait, and I'm recording the whole thing for a course or a class that will be released in August, and that one's coming up. I have a figurative course that I'm editing right now that I'm not sure the release date, but it's from Lynn Clark on drawing. We have that one on the books, and then there's a few right now that we're working on with other artists that we cannot quite announce yet, but because we're still working on the negotiations of them, but that are TBD. Plus, I'm going to be doing a few more lecture things with Portrait Society that will be released in July and in December. So, and Alex is doing 6 more videos with us in the next 3 months. Right, Alex?
Nope.
That's a joke. Alex is not doing any videos in the next 3 months with us. Just in case anyone took that seriously.
You never know. He could.
He could.
Feel it.
So, anyway, but that's those are some of the things that are on the books at the moment. And we always do open critiques every month for all of our subscribers. So, which I've found very enjoyable. We just opened up for critiques this next week. We're going to be doing some. And there's always something coming up on the horizon with a few other artists that I've been talking with.
Marcus says, been loving seeing these different techniques develop over this session and the great insights you all have brought. Also, hi, Chelsea.
Hi, Marcus. How's it going? Thanks for watching. I was talking with Marcus earlier today. He did some freaking awesome value studies and has just been like doing really, really great work.
Nice.
Yeah.
Way to go, Marcus. I gotta be careful because as soon as it starts getting quiet like this, I start humming.
Have you guys been reading any interesting books lately?
Art books or books?
Any books?
Well, off of my brother's recommendation, I'm about to start the Way of Kings series. I tend to like reading some fantasy books here and there, and I hear a lot of good things about it. But at this moment, no, I've been so busy teaching and traveling and doing all sorts of stuff, I hadn't had even a moment to spare for reading.
Yeah, I'm not currently reading anything at the moment. Although I've bought a few books recently. But yeah, life keeps getting in the way. Or should I say, Netflix keeps getting in the way.
Speaking of which, there's a really cute series that Netflix just came out with called Heartstopper, and I watched that recently, and it's written by an author I really, really like, and she has a book called Radio Silence that I think I'm going to reread. So I'm not reading it at the moment, but I will probably jump into that, and it's a really cool story about a couple of kids who like forge a friendship, and they, oh goodness, how do I pitch this?
Make it good.
This girl is set to be like the valedictorian of her high school, and like secretly she loves making art and is obsessed with this sci-fi podcast that's kind of like Doctor Who.
Okay.
And she finds out that the kid across the street makes it, and they forge this friendship where she loves this podcast and really supports him, and he loves her art that she makes as like fan art of the podcast, and it's kind of just about like friendship and creativity and making something great together, and also about the value of doing what you love rather than just kind of going off to college and assuming you are just on that kind of path, that like ivory tower tenure track path that smart kids tend to get pushed into.
Mm-hmm. That's
But
cool.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
And Heartstopper was really sweet.
And what was the name of it?
Radio Silence is the name
Radio
of the
Silence.
book. I listen to audiobooks while I paint.
Right.
So I love the audiobook version of it. And then Heartstopper is the one that's on Netflix by the same author.
Stopper. Radio Silence. Got it in my head. I'll text you again and ask you about what the name of it is later.
Cool. Okay, deal. Oh man, Alex here's just turned a corner, and now I'm angry at mine.
Rah!
You pulled up that Daniel Keyes painting.
Oh man. So I just
absorbed it.
see. I thought I was giving myself an edge, and I just handed it to you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, since painting is a competition and everything. Obviously.
No, I was just sitting here being inspired by y'all's and keep finger painting.
Oh, that was not the right mark. Oh,
Having trouble keeping my white clean.
Mm.
yeah.
'Cause it's
Your white looks a lot cleaner than ours, or mine. Can't really speak for Chelsea, seeing that I hadn't seen her piece in a while.
It's like, that's a bluish white, that's a yellowish white.
Yep.
I've only got one Only using one brush.
Steve asks, is it worth it to join the Portrait Society?
I think so. It's most certainly been worth it for me. You know, when you go to like the conferences and they're doing so many more like online things, that I have found that there's even more value in it than there used to be. And there used to be a lot of value. So like, you know, I think they're just only making it better. For me, like when you go to like the conferences like that, it's about connection, it's about being inspired. And I think that it does both of those things in spades when you're there. You know, I mean, you should have seen Chelsea and her posse of friends that she had. They, you know, they went and set up in the middle of like the hallway, a whole person modeling, and everyone just got it gathered around and started painting and pulled out their Prasad boxes and went at it. And it was a lot of fun, to watch. So, you know, things like that get you inspired. And, you know, as painters, we're by ourselves so much that it, you know, we need inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
So I'd say for those reasons, yeah, I think it's important.
Louis, I know you're a big extrovert. Do you ever feel like you need company when you're working on a piece?
Oh yeah. And you don't even have to talk to me. It's just like having a presence in the room helps.
Yeah.
So no, that I'm very much that way. So I have to, in fact, one of the main reasons I started East Oaks is for the fact that I realized how essential community was for me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's great. I mean, I don't think Alex and I say more than 3 or 4 sentences to each other when we're painting upstairs, but just the fact that we're both sitting there working is powerful in and of itself.
Yeah, I bet that's awesome.
Millie asks, guys, best ways to approach anatomy studies for artists, especially the figure.
I would say, I mean, I actually think sometimes a more basic book is better than like a very complicated book. And like the Anatomy for Sculptors book, I think they now might call it the Anatomy for Artists, but is a book that's got really fantastic illustrations. I think the best way for me to say you should be studying is really paying attention to understanding the connection between like joints and like the larger shapes of just like the direction of rib cage and pelvis, and just understanding those orientations will really help. But it is a deep dive journey. I mean, it's not like a simple ask. I think it's a hard study, you know, but worth it. I mean, I still feel like I don't know everything, and I studied for 3 years on anatomy.
Yeah, I was taking an online thing, or watching an online thing from this artist, Will Weston, who's more of like an animator, but he just can make up figures out of his head. He teaches anatomy, and he's really good at it. And you know, something that he was saying that he learned anatomy just by copying a lot of anatomy books, just like drawing what was in the anatomy books and trying to understand, what he's drawing, and probably not just like drawing a impressionistic copy of it, but a informed thing. So anyway.
Yeah, it sounds really good. It's amazing how much you can learn from just copying things.
Yeah.
Master copies and studies and all of that. There's something about just the intentional looking and practicing it with your own hand that translates a lot better than just looking.
Yeah, totally. Actually doing it, because when I was trying to learn anatomy, if I wasn't drawing at the same time that like the instructor was on the video or whatever, I just couldn't understand it. I had to get like that hand-mind coordination.
Tell you what, even though it's challenging, I'm actually having a blast trying different things. Chelsea, you feeling the same way over there?
What gave it away? I'm thinking about what I wish I had done differently at the beginning. And trying to use that and let it inform what I do next.
Kim asks, are you born a genius painter or do you become one? Also, would you recommend a gallery? If not, how do you make a living without it?
I need you to ask the second part of the question later again, but to answer the first part, was Michael Jordan out of the womb a genius basketball player? No, he wasn't. You have a certain capacity of understanding, and some people get it faster. However, you still have to cultivate and work hard for your understanding of the thing. So it's kind of like, if Michael Jordan didn't work hard, he would have never become the basketball player that he was. And so the same thing with painting is that there's a certain level of capacity of understanding, but you can have all the talent in the world if you never develop it, it doesn't matter. So that's my thoughts on that part of it. What was the second part of the question?
I think he was asking, or I think they were asking, would you recommend working with a gallery? And if not, how do you make a living without it?
Oh man, there are so many ways now to make a living with being an artist that is not in the route of a gallery. So I don't show consistently in any gallery. I haven't for many years. In fact, I think I've only shown maybe 3 pieces or 4 pieces in galleries, and I've made a full living as a painter, mainly because I do commission work. So that is how, but you know, there's forms of workshops and instruction that you can also do. There's you know, people are curating art online to do stuff. I mean, there's a million ways. Being an illustrator is another way that a lot of people go, you know, into the gaming world as an artist. So it depends on what you are interested in, will depend on the route you want to take. Chelsea is, you know, makes a full living and does it in a very different way than we do. Chelsea, how do you want to?
Yeah, it's been a combination. When I started out, it was almost entirely commissions and probably a pretty similar business model for you, Louie. And now as I continue that, I started to increasingly factor in originals that I sold online via social media directly to collectors. And if that's something you want to do, build an email list. And then I kind of switched from commissions being the predictable part of that income to teaching being the predictable part of that income. And at the moment, I get to use that to kind of take a spec work sabbatical. And I'm exploring a few different techniques that I want to bring into my own work. So I am selling pieces a little bit at the moment, but my focus is on teaching, and then my intention is to come back and continue selling probably directly to collectors online after that sabbatical.
There you go. That was awesome. So, I mean, and then Alex has his way, which is galleries, and we can talk about that, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me it's just almost all from selling work through galleries. I'm just now, you know, about to teach a workshop that might become more of a thing, but yeah, I guess it's really what you want. Because whatever you want the most, I mean, you can get it.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be a painter who not necessarily worked with galleries, but only wanted to do their own work and blah, blah, blah. So, and I kind of looked at other artists that were living, that were doing what I wanted to do, and kind of was like, okay, how do they make a living? Selling work through galleries, teaching workshops, maybe prints, you know, all this kind of stuff.
The one thing I will say for anyone wanting to explore that path, the print route specifically, because I know a lot of artists are really intrigued by that at the beginning of their professional journey, is for prints to be profitable, you need to have a huge audience.
Yep.
It's almost something you do as your career is much more mature and you can't keep up with the demand for selling originals. It's not really a way to bootstrap yourself early in your career.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember it was before I was even doing realism. It was like I was doing dinky, surreal stuff. I've got prints made. It's like, yeah, the first thing you think is the cool thing. I want to make prints and I want to have a website.
Then you quickly realize like how much work goes into logistics and cost, and and all those things, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, my return is very minimal because I had 15 people buy a print.
Yeah.
You know?
Not to mention printers, not the people running shops, but like the actual physical printer. Worst device to have to work with in the whole world.
It really is. Yeah, because it never gets it right, and you have to
Ever.
I have a friend. I actually have a relative who is that's what he does. He's a printer for mass printing for like hotels, for artwork that goes into hotels, like photography and stuff. And just to see the woes that they have to go through sometimes with their printing machines, it's just like, yep, no, nah, it's not my thing.
Yeah. The reason I feel comfortable weighing in on prints as a business is that early on I thought that would be the way to do it, and I got a printer, and it only took printing and proofing my like first print to be like, this is horrendous.
Yeah. Yep. It's brutal. We in undergrad took graphic design classes because I got a BFA degree, and you know, they always said, okay, half the time you should be making the art and the other half you should be printing for your project. And they were telling us that as a forewarning, because a lot of people would be like, oh, I'll just do the project last minute like everything. Yeah, no, it was brutal. You know, you'd be in there for hours just trying to get it right. And something would go wrong, or then something would break down, and yep. I don't know if any of y'all have seen the movie Office Space, but like one of my favorite scenes of all time is they take the printer that just like is the bane of their existence and go out and like shoot it and like hit it with a baseball bat, you know, and get all of their emotions out on it. It's great.
Yeah. That's real.
Yep.
Okay, I want to get in the value of the vessel it's in, but I don't want to paint it as the vessel. But man, abstracting stuff is hard. That's where I'm at.
The struggle's real.
Yeah. I could just say, I don't know, isn't that what I just undid though?
As some encouragement, our friend Mustafa says, great results in just 2 hours.
Oh, thank you, Mustafa.
Yeah.
Came in right in the darkest hour.
Millie also says, your paintings are so beautiful, guys. Great job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Millie. Millie's awesome. I need to look at her work. She's gonna be a great portrait painter. She's working really hard to get out there and make a career out of it, speaking of.
So Steve asks, what do you think of the Boston School approach to painting as taught by Paul Ingebrigtsen?
Steve asked that, did he?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about their curriculum, but I feel like I've seen some pieces as of late that came out of there that I was like, okay, that I really like that. There's a still life artist that has been doing some work that she does like chiaroscuro style still lifes, and I think she's like maybe like the vice president or like the assistant director of the Boston School, and mad props to what she's doing. So in her field, that's I think she's really doing great stuff. So so they must be teaching something right out there, you know. I don't feel like I know too many people who've gone through their program, though. Do y'all know anyone that's gone through their program?
I don't.
I might know.
I have.
someone.
You went to
Technically,
Boston?
no.
Caroline.
So I studied with an artist, Henry Wingate, who studied with Paul Ingebrigtsen. So I got his teaching through the lineage.
Look at that. You're a Boston School grandchild.
I am William Paxton's great-great-great-grandchild artist.
You should be answering this question because you probably have the most experience to it.
So I studied with an artist who studied in that tradition for 2 years. And it was a great introduction to painting because I learned all about drawing and about getting everything accurate and drawing completely from life. Everything I did was completely from life. And I really enjoyed it. And I learned color, I think, in a really great way. So there was a lot of emphasis on color and light, but not so much on form. And so when I would paint something, I struggled with the three-dimensionality of it, because sometimes I think I like made my edges either too hard or too soft. There wasn't like an in-between. And so some objects ended up feeling more cut out than they should have. But it really is a poetic way of painting because I feel like you capture light and dark really, really beautifully and you create like an atmosphere that way. So if you're looking to go study there, I would recommend it.
Anytime you go into an intensive study somewhere like those, I feel like you're going to get far more out of it than you ever thought you would. So for those reasons, I definitely recommend it. Especially if it's the location that's closest to you. You know, sometimes, you know, you might not have an opportunity to like go to Florence or move to New York or, you know, and, you know, oftentimes if you just find a community, you're going to become a much better painter than you would on your own.
John Flynn says, "Hey, Coach Chelsea, dropping in to grab some synergy and inspiration from you guys."
Hey, John, how's it going?
And we were asked, do you know the Harend Authentic Mongoose brushes? It is a Korean brush factory. They use genuine mongoose hair.
No.
No. But I have found that the Mongoose Langnickel brushes that like Lip King used to use and stuff, you can find some still on eBay. So I recently bought some Mongoose, RIP Mongooses, but off of eBay.
I tell you, my forewarning with anyone who does that, though, is you'll then get addicted to them, and then all of a sudden they'll run out and you won't be able to, you'll be like, no!
Yep.
At least that's what I hear. In fact, I think that this one's an authentic mongoose right here, this brush of mine. And it was a gift from Simi with rosemary brushes. Only use it for the most important occasions like painting from life.
Chelsea, what are you doing right now?
Oh, goodness. I am realizing that I had some significant value problems and my paint layer was way too thick, and I'm trying to correct both of those things while simultaneously stalling.
Good answer.
Yeah, a very truthful one. Also, our model has shifted and I'm upset with her. Okay, I think the moral of the story is stop painting the background. The value's correct, just don't worry about it. Instead of trying to be an artist. Yeah, yeah. Although while I have to rework this section, I feel like it really does drive home just how much the idea of like, it's just value. Like that's what matters. It's just value.
Yeah.
Everything else can frankly be totally made up.
You speak truth.
Yeah, I think if I pull this out of the hat, that's going to be my saving grace.
So Chase is wondering basically how it's financially possible to be an artist and to survive on your work. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Make sure you have roommates when you first start out.
Have months where you are literally testing, like making sure you can meet income goals.
Yep. Well, this is the first business advice I always tell people is in this world, because it's such a crazy world when you first start out, that the first thing you should do is get yourself debt free. It's the best thing I ever did for myself was become debt free first. So whatever you got to do that. I mean, deliver pizzas, barista, whatever. Live with your parents, get yourself financially stable before you try to make it as a career. Secondly, is never ever do it cold turkey. Always do it as a side hustle at the beginning, and then work your way towards what she was saying, which is work your way towards understanding if it's viable, and making sure that you have a projection of where you're going with your work, and make sure you have commissions lined up. I started the commission route, so what really mattered to me is I did it in college, and it was like, could I have a year's worth of orders? And that was just my goal, is a year's worth of orders. And I hit that when I was 21. And so since then, I've been fully a full-time painter. But Chelsea has a great way, it seems, that she's done it for her. So
It was very similar when I started. I had 6 months of commissions lined up, and based on how those had gone, I ran the numbers, and I was like, okay, based on the numbers in the business, like having 6 months of runway should give me enough time to continue to book out.
yeah.
yeah, that made a huge impact. And it was kind of surreal when it happened. It sort of snuck up on me.
Yeah, it tends to do that sometimes. Just all of a sudden you realize you're making it.
Yeah. Yep, that wasn't it.
Chelsea, I love hearing you talk to yourself because it makes me feel so much better about when I talk to myself. Because every now and again I feel like I'm over here, stupid.
What? Okay. Do I tell this story?
Yes. Anytime you have that question in your head, the answer is always yes. On
okay.
Painting from Life, always yes.
I was asked out on a date to go do life drawing, which, yeah. I remember thinking to the person who asked, I don't think this is gonna go how you think it's gonna go. And she is a therapist, and she listened to me talk to myself while I was in the life drawing session. And she's like, I'm a little concerned about how you talk to yourself when you're drawing. And what I wound up saying was whenever I'm kind of correcting what I'm doing, I never think of it as being mean to myself. I'm not trying to be mean.
You're just talking through it.
Yeah, exactly. It's my way of kind of supporting myself, and I feel really reassured when I make a mistake and I realize I've made the mistake in the moment. That for me feels way better than kind of saying you got this, you got this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all right. Yeah. Was there a second date?
No. But that's a different
Hopefully
story.
she's not listening in.
Yeah. It was a nice time though, but they lit the model with 2 different lights.
Oh no.
Right? And I was just you're gonna see my slightly ugly side come out because I'm gonna sit here and complain about the setup the whole time.
Darko says, kind regards from Serbia. Alex is an extraordinary young artist. Pure gold, if I may say so. ...
Pure gold.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
So
he is.
nice.
Okay, switch to a part of the painting that was probably fine before and I didn't really need to touch it, but I feel happier, so I'm taking a win.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
Do you guys ever find that when you're doing a painting and you just did one day of painting and it's kind of the block in and you walk away from it and you're like, this is really great. And the next morning you look at it and you're like, what was I thinking?
That's every day. Yeah, when your eyes get tired and you're like, I'll get back to that little section later. And then later that day, you're like, just 10 more minutes. And then you look at it at the end of the day and your eyes have gotten so tired, you're like, that looks pretty good. Actually, I don't need to touch that. And you get in there the next morning and you're like, what was I thinking? Yeah, I know that exact feeling.
what is like the hardest stage of painting for you guys?
I feel like if I'm being really smart and giving a really good answer, I'll say the block in. But I don't think you know until you're in the middle. And the middle is often the part that sucks.
Yeah, because then you're like having to play recover.
Yeah, it's like you aren't close enough to the end that everything looks really lovely and you have all these things grounding the painting.
Yeah, because then the block-in is like, it went from absolutely nothing to something, so that's
Exactly.
kind of happy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's where your dreams are crushed because, like,
Yeah.
you know, you have like great aspirations about what this is going to be, and you're like, oh, I just know that this is it. This is going to be the masterpiece. And after, each decision down that line gets you a little bit further away from that dream.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Do you all agree? Or do you feel like there's another stage of the painting that's the hardest?
Oh yeah, the middle, I think.
Y'all, flowers are hard.
Flowers are hard.
It's making meaning out of nonsense. Like that big leaf, what even is that leaf?
Yeah, that leaf is just a big, awkward shape. Louis doesn't get to see it like we do.
Oh, actually, no, there's plenty of leaf on this side. I got plenty of leaf, and guess what? It looks like just a big old purple blob right now. I'm like, well, worst case scenario, just focus on the petals of the flowers.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you
This
know.
is my saving grace. That like, okay, I don't even have enough time to call it finished.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I actually think that the thing that makes a painting go awry is when I have like really high expectations for it and I put those on it and then it gets stressful instead of fun and then I don't paint like loose and nice anymore and it just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I like your daisy shape, Alex. I like how you handled it.
But yeah, whenever I go into a painting, like this one has to be good. Yep.
Yeah.
It never goes good.
Yeah, you tighten up and you start wanting to like take control, and so then you get like super tight and super tiny, and then the next thing you realize is like, oh, yeah, that doesn't look like how I wanted to paint at all.
Yep.
Oh man, this leaf.
You got this, Chelsea. You got it.
Thanks. The form of it is so weird.
It's kind of like a starfish shape.
Yeah, and it's like when I was following the direction of the form, I think I wasn't describing the form very well in making that decision. I think it got a little bit too two-dimensional.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing about alla prima painting is that you're drawing and painting, and then when you don't want to like put too much paint down so that it gets muddy, but then you have to be really intentional with it, so you have to get the colors right.
Yeah, and it's just little stuff like the direction of the brush stroke. I think kind of killed what I was doing.
Louis, do you like to use flats when you paint flowers?
I do if I'm doing something like that I feel like is some sort of form of plane. It's funny, I go from like flats to rounds a lot, but anytime I'm like trying to do edge work, I love to use flats too, because they kind of help me think about the edge better. So it's funny though, I typically use more rounds and filberts than I do flats, but whenever I'm painting either hair or flowers, I find myself using more flats.
Clifton says Chelsea is too hard on herself. It looks great.
Thank you. Yeah, I think flowers show me that there is so much I don't understand. And that's a really cool thing. But also you gotta kind of manage your mindset when you're in that zone of being actively humbled. All right, that place I said I wasn't gonna touch. Yeah, I'm gonna touch it.
Do it.
Don't touch it.
YOLO, baby.
I feel like this is like the scene in Finding Nemo where they're going to touch the boat.
Yeah,
before.
I'm gonna go touch the butt.
That's what this is right now. I'm about to get kidnapped. Those are the stakes. Yep, that made absolutely not the mark I wanted, but that's okay. I had to rework this anyway. Okay, cool.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I always think of like Austin Powers when he's like, yes, no. Because I feel like that's what I'm doing all the time. Like, yes, okay, all right, yes, no.
Oh, it's been a really long time since I've seen Austin Powers.
Yep.
Chelsea, I like that white.
Thank you. Yeah. Give me that play-by-play affirmation.
Makes me kind of go, wait, what's going on? What's going on?
The trick, man, my values are too light on this flower. And I think that's kind of rude, frankly.
Row.
Era asks, how do you stop buying brushes and paints for the future? Any advice? I think they're asking how to like preserve your brushes and how to save money on paint without like needing to buy a bunch of it all the time.
I tend to put my brushes in two categories.
Sorry for whoever that might have been. Okay, that was the wide angle. We're good. Shh. Sorry, keep going, Chelsea. Don't listen to me. Stupid.
Now, that self-talk is a little negative. So Okay, so I've watched videos of artists who take really good care of their brushes, and I have tried to learn from that and adopt their habits. So I feel like that's the first thing. It's like, look at artists who do a really good job of not ruining their brushes. But then the second is, at least for me, I have some brushes that I really like to be kind of ruined. And so I just think of them in a life cycle. Like I'll try and keep them nice for as long as I can, and as soon as they're not nice anymore, I ask myself what they can be used for. And usually it's making really unique, unpredictable kinds of marks.
Yep. I like that. The other thing to consider is that for me, there's a return on investment where if you spend a whole lot of time doing brush care, and that's another 30 minutes every time that you're doing brush care that you could have been painting.
I like this.
And then you start calculating that like, oh, I washed brushes for 60 hours this past year, and you start like calculating those numbers, all of a sudden you realize that like, honestly, it would have been worth it for you to do less brush care and not worry about it and have painted more.
Yeah.
So there's an equilibrium between those two that you should consider.
I like that.
So.
Yeah. Ever since although I don't know about the archivalness, but been putting my brushes in mineral oil at the end of the day, after I kind of squeegee them out and everything, my brushes last a lot longer.
Yeah.
I have started doing the same thing, and I want to say it's cut down on brush cleaning time, but I think what's actually happened is that my brush cleaning after the session is non-existent, but my brush cleaning before the next session is longer. But
yeah, what I do is what is similar to Alex. I put it in mineral oil. I'll just wash them out in my turp, clean them off, and then I'll lay them in mineral oil, and then come out the next day and just put them back into the turp, squeeze them out, and just start painting. And they've been great, and I haven't had to buy. The only time I ruin brushes is when I realized that one brush that I didn't realize had paint in it still, because it's the same color as the bristles, and it was sitting on another side because I'm really bad about putting my brushes all over the place. And the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, that's like my favorite brush, and it's now ruined.
I really like Murphy's oil soap, but I find that it's a good reviver of brushes, only for certain brushes. Like Sables and like Master's Choice from Rosemary, I struggle to save them. It's like all the paint just goes into the ferrule and the bristles splay, but like the ivories, basically anything synthetic or that's like meant to feel synthetic. So synthetics, ivories, some of the Eclipse combers, they tend to fare a little bit better when I need to rescue them.
Yes. Also, Jack's linseed oil soap is fantastic for reviving a valuable brush.
Nice.
So I have revived several with it that I thought had gone to the point of no return. And then I have a few that have gone to the point of no return, and just chalked it up to better luck next time and be more conscientious about which brushes I used.
Do you guys have like soap that you recommend to use when you do your, I don't know, like final brush washing?
The kind I use is Jack's oil soap. That's my go-to. So
Irish Spring.
Irish Spring. Head and Shoulders.
Yeah, for those special brushes.
For that special someone brush.
Oh, don't. Oh, okay, good. Whew.
Thought he was coming to look at yours.
Yeah. I was about to ward him off like a vampire.
No. I'm dealing with that awkward purple leaf now.
Oh, let me know if you come away with any secrets.
Come away with me in the night. No, only Eric Rhodes has the secrets in his videos.
Millie says, Chelsea and all of you, thank you for being so brave. You are such an inspiration for everyone. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, I'm certainly gonna keep it real while we paint flowers.
Oh, and the last question, I think they're also asking about paint. Like, how do you save money on oil paint?
Oh, I don't.
I would also say I feel like whenever I've used bad quality paint on like a student's painting, I always have to use more of it.
Yep.
And so I feel like buying better quality paints, you actually use less.
Yeah.
So
I have students ask me a lot about, you know, putting paint in the freezer, or putting saran wrap over it, or different things you can do along those lines. And I don't do anything like that. I feel like it's maybe rougher for me because I put out more paint than the two of you do. So if I don't use it, it probably bites me in the butt a little bit more. But I've just kind of accepted it and moved on.
yeah, I do put my palette in the freezer.
Oh, you
at the
do?
end of the day. Yeah. But
And I do too.
Really?
Or I put mine in the fridge. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I get a bit of freezer burn if it's in there too long. Like legit, some of the piles will have that little frostiness to it. But it helps a little bit. Not the freezer burn. The fact that it's in the freezer.
I remember when I studied at GCA for that month, they had a freezer and the door was open and they had like piles of pallets just hanging out of it. But I think they ended up just being exposed to like the normal air temperature because the door was open.
Those were the days.
So the door was open on purpose?
Because they couldn't close it.
Oh,
There's
because
so
there
many
was
pallets
many.
in it.
I feel like at a certain point, I just have to wonder what that's accomplishing. Like not even like the open freezer part of it, but just like, I don't know, just leave your palette out. But
Put it in the freezer. See what happens in the morning. Your big pile will still be wet.
okay. Because Alex Venezia suggested it, I will try it.
As I put black down over here.
It's distracting. It's too high contrast.
Are we doing till 9 o'clock?
Midnight.
Oh man!
Keep going. Yeah. No. Yes. Till 9 o'clock. Are we close?
Yeah, we are.
We're past it.
No.
Yeah, well, no, you guys have 7 minutes.
Okay, 7 minutes to finish my masterpiece.
I'm glad that's what you're saying about yours.
No, it's yes. Well, I'm trying to, love on myself here.
Okay,
You know.
gotcha. Yeah.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. But well, everyone, as we continue to wrap these things up, all of these, well, mine at least, will be for sale later. And I would assume that Alex and Chelsea would probably put theirs up too. A portion of it goes to benefit East Oaks and all the endeavors that we're trying to do to continue to push content out towards you to make your life more enriched. So if you want to know more information about these paintings, go to info@eastoaksstudio.com and there should be, or info@eastoaksstudio.com, and that you email us there and find out more information. And they will also be probably posted on our website later. So, but thank you to everyone who has joined us, and Chelsea and Alex for participating, and Caroline and Nick being behind the computer, asking all the questions that we hopefully can try to answer. But I'm going to keep on working till the end, and we'll talk. We have for all of the subscribers, we have a open critique night, open critique session, I'd say, next week. So if you are in our subscriber base, we'd love for you to submit something, and I'll look it over and go through it on that critique session. So, and just look out for our newsletter and all the announcements that we have in the future. So how are we doing on time?
You guys got 4 minutes.
Okay. Well, we're just going to keep painting to the end.
Joyce says, thank you very much for an excellent session.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Joyce.
We're getting lots of thank yous from Mia and Sue.
Oh, thank you guys for joining us.
Oh man, what was that color?
Evie says, thanks so much to you all. So informative and inspiring. Heart.
Thank you for joining us, Evie.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's like I can paint 3 more flowers in 5 minutes, right?
Right?
Well, as normal, I bit off more than I can chew, but it'll probably be one of those things where I'll try to finish out what I can tonight, and I'll be out here till 1 in the morning.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Alex, put the magic paint down.
I just had a when did that get there moment.
I told you the model moved.
Yep.
Something
Like-
bloomed.
Yeah. I've most certainly had a few of those moments too where I was like, wait a minute. I'm always scared to blame it on the model though.
Yeah, I
'Cause
don't
I'm
think
like-
this one's feelings will hurt too much.
Yeah, exactly. Ah. Get it, Alex. All right, everyone. Thank you again for being a part of this. And we truly appreciate y'all, and we look forward to doing this again next month. So everyone have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.